What's up, folks? It's your boy DT 2.0, and today we have a review of the Dell G15 gaming laptop, not to be confused with the Asus G15. Now, I'm doing something a little different this time, as I always review laptops that are mid to high tier. This time, I wanted to see if a real entry-level laptop can satisfy my gaming appetite, and I'm here to tell you right now with this one, don't do it. Just don't. Let's get into it. Now, I was going to do an unboxing of this, and I had started filming this and all of this other stuff, but there are two reasons why I didn't finish it. One, it was just a plain Jane box, and the unboxing experience was very flat, to say the least. And two, when I was setting it up, it froze multiple times. Now, I was going to bring it back, and I did a couple of restarts, and I finally got it to get to where I can get to the start screen after multiple tries. But to tell you the truth, I even put it back in the box at one point, and I was just pissed off. So as you can see, there was some frustration from the jump, but I have to give every item the benefit of the doubt before it goes off the deep end. And I'm talking about in the river somewhere. Nah, I'm just playing this back to the store. But before we do all of that, let's get into these specs. This thing sports the AMD Ryzen 7 5800H, a paltry 8 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabyte SSD, a suspect NVIDIA RTX 3050 Ti with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and I'll give you my thoughts about that in a few, a 15.6 inch full HD screen at 120 hertz, a lighted keyboard, not to be confused with RGB, and altogether this thing was $1,150 before taxes at Best Buy. I think after taxes it was like just over $1,200. Now, let's do a quick roundabout. On the left side, we have an Ethernet port, a microphone headphone combo jack, and a little light to show if it's being charged or not. In the back, we have a USB-C port, a USB-A port, and an HDMI port, and a power input, and a whole lot of damn space. Whole lot of space. On the right side, we have two more USB-A ports, and folks, that's about it. No RGB lighting, no fanciness, just plain Jane. Now, I'm going to do this review a little different this time. This time, no likes, dislikes, or concerns and all of that. Because this is an entry-level laptop, I'm just going to speak on the construction, display, keyboard and trackpad, battery and fan noise, speakers, the performance, and finally, my recommendation. This way, I keep from forcing myself to like or dislike certain things about this laptop that, to be honest with y'all, I'm really not fond of. Overall, I'm not impressed or amused, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's get into the construction. Now, this design looks very familiar. I just can't think of where I've seen this from. Oh yeah, the Alienware M15 line, folks. You've seen it on my channel and plenty other channels, but very subtle but obvious differences and cheaper feeling overall. It's lighter but chunkier, which is a bad combination. They put this ugly phantom gray color that flashes of dark gray dots on here that I just don't like. Looks like the paint job on a mug I have in my cabinet. I do like the G logos in various places, might I add, so that's a good thing. But the lid is squishy, the plastics feel hard and brittle, and overall it just feels like I purchased an Alienware M15 on Wish or DHgate or any other knockoff website, or it was made by Fisher Price. And don't act like y'all ain't never heard of those sites before with them fake Jordans out there. All the way down to the motherboard, which contains an Alienware logo that's a little bit scratched and looks like it was put there purposely to make you feel more confident about your purchase. But it actually is an Alienware motherboard. How do I know? Well, I found out while dogging this thing, and in this pic you can actually see the labeling for the Tron-like connection that's obviously missing on this unit. But I asked, why didn't they just make another original design for this Dell G15 and separate this completely from the M line? Or I don't know, fold this over into the Alienware side and leave Dell Core to its just as business and personal use. This is the lowest budget, cheapest, money-grabbing moves I've seen from a major company in a long time. A long time. They were really reaching with this to grab some of y'all COVID dollars during this quote-unquote chip shortage. If the M line was never around, then I would probably give it some props. But I absolutely cannot, since I've had pretty much every version of that laptop, and this is a blatant ripoff of those models. I mean, if Dell didn't own Alienware, they'd probably be under lawsuit right now. Now, on the internals, in comparison to the M line, it's obvious there's no vapor chamber, so it can get heated, and we'll test that. They did cheap out and give us one RAM stick and left one wide open. Like, why didn't they just pay the extra $20 it cost to put one in there and just give us 16 gigabytes? I'm sure the performance would have been better if they did that. There is an additional SSD card slot, and you can replace the Wi-Fi card. So unlike its more expensive older brethren, surprisingly, this thing is fully upgradable. So we'll just end this on a good note and give them a thumbs up on that. Display. Despite me clowning and beating up the construction, the display is probably the standout out of all of these components on this laptop, and that's not saying much. It's bright enough, and 120 Hz is accurate for entry-level gamers. The viewing angles are average at best, and the colors, well, they're okay. I'm not a big fan of screens that don't stretch the limits of the Adobe or DCI P3 color gamut, so to me, being just 100% sRGB is just bland and has no pop. Backlight bleed, though, was surprisingly minimal, but we know that varies from unit to unit, but this particular unit, it was pretty even. I even brought it in the bathroom and cut the lights off. Y'all know that's how I test them. Screen flex was surprisingly rigid, and I'd say on par with this evil twin brother, the M15. Now, there is a camera, and if you've had an iPhone 5 or a Galaxy S5 way back when, then you know the type of quality to expect. Overall, with this screen, if you increase the refresh rate and slap the screen in an M15 or even an MSI G66, you probably wouldn't even know the difference and would not be disappointed. Those screens have almost the same specs outside of the refresh rate. So again, that's two sections with a thumbs up in there. Moving on. Keyboard. I like the color. I've always been a fan of black keys because they're the most touched part of the laptop and prone to getting dirty and staining, especially if they're white. Here, you don't have that to worry about. I feel comfortable to not have to always check my hands before I start typing, so that's a good thing. No RGB lighting though. You only get one colorway here, folks, and it's not white, so you better like orange. The only other color you get is off. The key travel is not the same as Alienware. It's completely different keyboard. It's a completely different keyboard, and that's overall it's just average. The key travel is not as deep as I like, and it just don't have that same feel. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels cheap. I guess I can relate this keyboard to a keyboard at my job, and that's not a very good compliment. It's like this keyboard that's great for everyday work or school, but not for everyday gaming. They are very quiet though. I'm glad they included a number pad, and just like every other 15.6-inch laptop out there that has one, those keys are a little bit smaller, but I got used to those on my Lenovo Legion 7 Gen 6, so I'm okay with them now. I don't see myself using them much anyway. Now the trackpad, it's a trash pad. I said it, trash pad. It's plastic, extremely cheap feeling. It is a little solid around the edges, but that's about it. But it's nowhere near as smooth as a glass trackpad. I'd definitely be using a mouse with this unit if I kept it, which I'm not, no doubt. Battery and fan noise. Two things I don't care about but always speak about is battery and fan noise. Why? Because I never game on battery, and fan noise is irrelevant when I have on headphones. But I only cover them because you want me to cover them, so I'm going to cover them. Now, battery life is pretty good, surprisingly, and that's because this laptop is so underpowered. You have an efficient processor and a 60-watt graphics card, so that's a pretty good combination for good battery life. It's not as demanding, so battery life is actually okay. I'd say it's on par with the Asus G14, which is about 5 to 6 hours with no gaming. Now, if you start gaming on this, cancel Christmas, so don't expect much. Fan noise is on par with Alienware series, with the Alienware series, which are the loudest in the business when you push this machine. But I ask myself, when can you? It doesn't have that much power, so you can only push it so far before it starts breaking down in performance. Don't try to play AAA games on here better than medium settings because you will be sorely disappointed. It doesn't get that hot, even when I ran a stress test, so that's a good thing, but also not surprising, again, because the power of this laptop, which is none, bare minimum. So keep that in mind if you try to get this piece. Don't be hard-headed. Just don't. I'm throwing all kind of signs in this review to let y'all know, but I'm going to keep going. Speakers. They have a lot in common with the trackpad. Trash. Absolute garbage. It sounds like you're listening to a small speaker from afar in an auditorium or on a basketball court from way on the other side. Sounds like a bunch of Smurfs in here yelling. And yes, I'm dating myself. Look up Smurfs if you don't know what they are. But again, they are trash. Do not fool yourself. Get you some headphones if you want any kind of a decent, good audio experience. I placed these well below the MSI GE66, and y'all know how I felt about those. Those were garbage. And these are under the trash can. Performance. Now, I didn't expect much from this, and I'm warning you ahead of time, don't expect much from this. I ran my usual gamut of 3D Mark's Time Spy Extreme, Port Royal, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark. The only reason I ran Time Spy Extreme vice the regular Time Spy test was to enable me to compare it fairly to previous laptops I've had in here. Now, I'm not comparing it to those big dogs because they'd completely washed this thing, but I will compare it to the one that's closest in price that I've had in here, and that's the Asus G14. The difference in price when on sale between this and the G14 is only about $200 to $300. So is it worth the wait to save some money and get a much better laptop? Let's see. In a Time Spy Extreme test, the Asus G14 scored a 3708, while the Dell G15 scored a 2855. So there's roughly a 50%, almost a 50% increase in performance when you save a little money and spend a little more. Moving on to the Port Royal test, the Asus G14 scored a 4503, while the Dell G15 scored a 444. And no, folks, that is not a misprint. That's straight what you get from Wendy's, a 444. Do not try to turn this thing on with any type of ray tracing with this laptop at all. It will not perform well, and it will kick up the fans and crash your game like it did with me multiple times while playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider and running its benchmark. It will not let me go. Speaking of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the Dell G14, or I'm sorry, the Asus G14 averaged 60 frames per second with ray tracing on and 83 frames per second with 83 frames per second with ray tracing off. I'm all over my words today. But the Dell G15 averaged 31 frames per second when ray tracing on and 58 frames per second when ray tracing off. But that was at medium settings. When I ran this test on the G14, it was at ultra settings. When I ran it on the G15 and I ran it at ultra settings or even higher settings, it started coughing up blood. It's an absolute joke to call this graphics card anything close to a 30 series, which is supposed to increase performance or make performance of ray tracing better, right? This thing fell well below a 3060 Max Q, and I'd say probably fall below a 2060 without ray tracing. It was like watching the Matrix in slow motion scenes when running benchmark on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now again, I know it's not fair to compare the 3060 to the 3050 Ti, but I'd expected the performance to be at least in the ballpark. This was JV against the Lakers. A mess at best. The biggest reason I'm comparing them, again, is because of the price. Because they're there. Because they're in the same ballpark. Now, let's get into my recommendation. Now, I started this review saying don't do it. And to be honest, I'm sticking with that assessment. I'm standing on that shit. Do not fall for the banana in the tailpipe with this one, folks. Even for an entry-level gamer, there are cheaper laptops out there that can perform much better, even if you bought one with the 20 series chips in them from last year. I don't care if you did slap 16 gigabytes of RAM in here and 2 terabytes SSD in here. It's not going to get that much better. I can see this thing going on a massive sale during the holidays, and let me tell you one more again, do not fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to your child or any of your children. Buy this for your enemies. Maybe even that stepchild that you really don't like but gotta buy a present for. I'm tripping, y'all. But seriously, before anybody asks me what I recommend instead of this, I've already mentioned it during this review, throughout this whole review, and that's the Asus G14. It's a little bit more expensive, but it gives you way better performance. The construction is solid, the keyboard is great, and it's extremely portable. No, it doesn't have a camera, but they're all trash on gaming laptops out here anyway, so get you one off of Amazon and call it a day. But this shit is trash, and it's going back in the box and swiftly back to the store. I can't even believe there's a version of this that's even cheaper than this with a 3050 non-Ti, whatever that means in this instance. I hate to see how that performs, and I ain't buying that shit, so don't ask me to. If you ask me, the 3050 is a money grab and probably a rebranded 1650 or lower. There, I said it. What y'all gonna do? Sue me. I hate going through a review like this and beating up a laptop as much as I did, but again, after having a whole bunch of laptops in here that can, even the cheap ones I had in here that can perform adequately, this one was just bottom of the barrel. So I can't even end this on a good note other than recommending to y'all to don't do it. Even if this thing is in the bargain bin with those damn snow caps and those dots at Walmart, don't do it. Just don't. Once again, thanks for watching, folks. This your boy DT 2.0. Y'all stay out of trouble, stay safe, and stay healthy. Deuces.